For 100 years, the novel had walked a path towards increasing realism, culminating in Jane Austen's portrayal of Georgian propriety, with an ironic, witty turn to keep us in its spell. But to three young sisters gripped by the thunderous, passionate lyrics of Byron and Wordsworth, one thing was missing from the art of the novel, something that would release its true dynamic power. Forget all the pretty gardens and Georgian mansions, they decided. Let's kick open the doors to poetic language. Let's make things messy and chaotic and vivid and more real than reality itself. They left the townhouse for the bleak and battered moors, and the gentrified ladies for orphans in rags. Instead of obedience to social norms, they would kick at authority, or even ignore it altogether. They would clash the dangerous, rural, uneducated heathen against the propriety of middle-class safety, and they would be the punk to Jane Austen's yacht rock. And they decided that the year of 1847 would be the year that they would unleash hell. A reader in 1847 fed thus far on a diet of polite social comedies, grand historic operettas, and immersed in respectable middle-class realism, could not have anticipated the revolution about to take place in October of that year. Picking up a copy of Jane Eyre by Charlotte Brontë, you're suddenly not reading about the kind of female protagonist who flounces her way into a ballroom, but rather about an orphan girl abused at home and at school, who eventually falls in love with a man already married to a mad woman he keeps secreted in the attic, a crazed wife who eventually kills herself and maims her husband by starting a house fire. Only once the balance of power between the maimed widower who has lost his wife, his house and his dignity, and our newly wealthy protagonist Jane has been corrected, does she agree to marry him. Aside from the counter-conventional plot, the novel bristles with poetically charged language. You feel the sharp jabs of her childhood bully, the smell of burnt porridge in the charity school she attends, and the blazing flames of the house fire that destroys Jane's last limiting boundary and symbolically castrates the otherwise classically masculine force that is Rochester. The curtains of convention have been torn. The departure from authors like Austen was intentional. Pride and Prejudice is a carefully fenced, highly cultivated garden with neat borders and delicate flowers, but no glance of a bright, vivid physiognomy. No open country, no fresh air, no blue hill, no bonny beck. I should hardly like to live with her ladies and gentlemen in their elegant but confined houses. To Charlotte, the novel, for all its potential for realism, was a poetic art more than anything else. Jane Austen is not a poetess, has no sentiment, no eloquence, none of the ravishing enthusiasms of poetry. When it was put to Charlotte that Austen was a great literary artist, she responded, "Can there be a great artist without poetry?" Charlotte Bronte's Jane Eyre was an immediate success. Readers loved the alternative nature of its plot and the page-turning descriptive language which conveyed the feelings of the characters. A reviewer wrote of Charlotte's Jane Eyre, "The story is unlike all that we have read." If Jane Eyre opened the door to a new trend in poetic novel writing, her sister's novel, published just 36 days later, kicked the door down and pulled it off its hinges. Wuthering Heights is remembered now as a tragic love story, but to its first readers it was a riot of death, brutal violence, hateful revenge, and a total absence of any happy ending. Another orphan, this time a boy taken from the streets of Liverpool to be brought up in an old country house on the moors, grows up with an adopted brother who beats him, and an adoptive sister with whom he becomes enthralled. They come to identify with each other to the extent that she proclaims, "I am Heathcliff," and once separated from her by her marriage to the local toff, He cries, "I cannot live without my life." Heathcliff begins a campaign of terror on those who have wronged him, spanning 2 generations. He marries and then imprisons the sister of the man who married his Cathy, and does so just to spite him. He contemplates murder, suicide, and necrophilia once Cathy is dead. As if the plot were not riotous enough, just look at the language. Heathcliff, crippled by grief, says, "I cannot look down to this floor, but her features are shaped on the flags, in every cloud, in every tree, filling the air at night, and caught by glimpses, in every object by day, I am surrounded with her image. The entire world is a dreadful collection of memoranda that she did exist, and that I have lost her." This is the voice of one who knows grief. But not only is Heathcliff hounded by loss, he's utterly outside the bounds of civilized decency. There is no legal or moral authority over Heathcliff. In contrast to the cultivated Edgar, Heathcliff is natural order personified. Critics savaged the novel, claiming that it showed the absolute worst aspects of human nature. Less than a year later, and still mired in controversy, the novel's author was dead. Her sister Charlotte attempted to rehabilitate its reputation, publishing a lengthy apologia in a new edited edition. With time, the novel has had several reappraisals in its clashing of raw nature versus cultivated estates, death versus life, and love versus revenge. But it's also a novel about resistance. Cathy will not be tamed by her prim and proper husband Edgar, but neither will she be consumed by Heathcliff. By the way, if you'd like a breakdown of the innovations of Jane Eyre or Wuthering Heights and some interpretive tools you can use in reading them, I've got 2 videos on them on my channel, so go check them out. A month later, Brontë published Agnes Grey, a novel about a woman attempting to forge her own path and her own future. Like her sister's novels, Agnes Grey explores anxieties about the role of women, the poor, and the expectations of social class. And like her sister's novels, she does so with biting, ironic imagery, putting a poetic spin on realism. As with many punk innovators, the Brontes ripped up the rulebook, turned the art on its head, paved the way for future innovations, courted controversy, and then died young. Both Anne and Emily would be dead within months of their novels being published, and Charlotte would be dead before she was 40. All 3 novels changed the landscape of the art, showing future writers that both subject matter and descriptive language can be pushed into utterly new directions. So which literary innovators do you think deserve the title of punk king or queen? Please comment below, and if you've enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe, and thanks for watching.